Okay, everybody, so I'm sitting here with our very own Shamrock Sheriff, Chief Chris Neace, and thanks for coming today.
Oh, no
Appreciate it. We're going to just talk about a few things and just give people kind of an update and let them know what's kind of going on. So, talking to a few people, they had mentioned the possibility of the court here in New Haven, I guess, dissolving and moving things. I guess right now, are things handled through union right now?
No, so right now the town does not have a court clerk, and that's kind of the issue that we're running into. Is I am all for the town keeping their court here, but the
Okay.
issue is we don't have a court clerk. So we don't have a court clerk, then they can't send it to the prosecutor to get it all signed and sealed and delivered, and we can't have court without a court clerk. So everything keeps getting pushed back until we get a court. I love Judge Leslie. I mean, I've known the man since 2016, whenever I was in Sullivan. So he's a very good judge. But there's more pros than cons if you go to union.
Okay.
One of the pros being if somebody gets say they get a speeding ticket, they don't pay it, and they get a warrant, and say they're picked up in Sullivan on that warrant. We don't have to leave the city unmanned or short-staffed to go pick them up. It would be a Franklin County warrant because it's a
Okay.
Franklin County Muni thing. So instead of leaving the city with no officers or one, short-staffed, whatever it is, then you're eliminating that factor because that is now a Franklin County issue. If say they have jailitis, and they don't want to go to jail, and we got to get a fit for confinement. Well, that's going to take at minimum probably 2 hours. I mean, it's not a quick process going to the hospital. So then you have an officer that's not in town, not able to answer calls for the citizens here, and they're stuck at the hospital trying to get this fit for confinement so the person can go to the jail. So if it's through
PG-13,
Muni
y'all.
court, then it is going to be able to. It's going to be a Franklin County issue as far as that. You wouldn't have to pay for a judge. You wouldn't have to pay for a court clerk. It would all the payments would go towards the Muni court. So, and I was talking to Judge Houston. He does Washington's, I believe is who he said. And how he does it is he has all the docket on a Wednesday, and then he'll have on a Thursday would be the trials if you want a trial. In 14 years, I've never had a trial for Muni court, so I know a lot of people's argument is, oh, we got to drive to Union for a trial. For Muni infractions, or for Muni ordinances, it's small stuff. It's your grass is too high. It's either high or it's not. I mean, there's really no argument.
Right, it's hard to fight those.
Yeah. I mean, now there's people that may fight like speeding tickets or something like that, but most of the Muni ordinances, it is it's pretty cut and dry. It's either you have a derelict vehicle or you don't. You have an unlicensed vehicle or you don't. So there's, again, in 14 years, I've never gone to a trial for a Muni issue. Now, state charges, those are bigger, your possession of controlled substance, your, stuff that's going to be on the state level, that you may have trials. I had a court appearance today, so, but you're going to have that regardless in Union.
Right.
So, the fear of, the citizens are going to have to go to Union, not necessarily, because you do have the option to pay your ticket just like you do now, but you'll have the option to pay it so you don't have to go to Union, if you don't want to mess with it. There's ways of taking care of it. Say you get an insurance ticket and you do have insurance, but, the law states you will provide it upon demand, not, that's out on my kitchen table. But I understand that people clean out their glove box or they get their mail. So, there's times where you can come back and you can actually show the ticket, or show the insurance card, and the prosecutor will get rid of those, as long as it shows that you did have insurance prior to the date. So
Right.
that's what I tell people, hey, you got to be driving with insurance. You say you got it, so just show the prosecutor the insurance, show the courts, and they get rid of it.
I've been through a similar circumstance with that,
Yeah.
and was able to show proof that we did have it, and
Yeah.
it goes pretty smooth. I mean,
Well, and
I think that's pretty much a non-issue.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you may get the new card in the mail, or you may have a glove box full of all expired ones, and you just didn't ever grab your new one, and you see that a lot. So,
Yeah.
but as far as the Muni court thing, if we have it here in town, that's great. I'm fine with that. But we're going to have a person working bailiff. So that means there's not going to be anybody on the road, or somebody's going to have to come in and work overtime, comp time to cover the bailiff, because there's got to be a bailiff there. So you would eliminate that if you went to Muni Court, because they got their own bailiffs. Again, there's more pros than cons, but I'm also fine with keeping it here. Like I said, Judge Leslie is a very good judge. He is he's stern, but he wants you to get your stuff taken care of. But he's fair, and I think that a lot of people respect that. And so having it here, I'm totally cool with. But we got to get a court clerk is the issue. That's pretty much what has brought this up, is the
Right.
court clerk position.
So I'm hearing mostly positives. It sounds like. Is there? And I mean, and it sounds like you're okay either way. Are there any major negatives to this?
I mean, I don't know as far as negatives. Like, I don't know how much paying Franklin County to do the Muni Court would be. But if you take the salary of a court clerk out, because the whole issue is, if you could make the court clerk say a 10-hour-a-week employee, just somebody that wants a second job, we could get that filled. The problem is Oscar is like the head of the courts, and Oscar is making it hard for small towns to have a Muni Court. They want everything to go to, the Muni Court level, as far as like, go to the county seat and have it there.
Right.
So we can't have a 10-hour. It's a minimum of 30 hours. There's not 30 hours of work.
Right.
So you're going to have, even if each officer that we have 4, even if each officer wrote 10 tickets a day, which would be impossible in this town, but say they did, that still wouldn't be 30 hours of work. It takes maybe 20 minutes to enter a ticket. Now, there's other things that go with it, but to enter a ticket, it doesn't take that long.
Right.
So to get 30 hours, and the problem is they can't help out with City Hall. So they can't have their hand dipped anywhere else. So it's not, hey, you could be this plus the city administrator's assistant or the city collector, or they can't have any outsource help, or they can't help anything else in the City Hall. They have to stay just solely with the courts. And so finding 30 hours, there'd be a lot of hours that are getting paid that there's not really anything to do. And so I think that it would ultimately save money if you're going there.
Yeah, I think saving money is important at this point for New Haven.
Right.
We don't need to be spending money on things that wasteful like that.
Well, and another problem that people don't think about is, so this is a small town. At 2 a.m, you're going to have one guy on. Well, if say that one guy is me, and I pull you over and you have a warrant, if we have Muni Court, I have to confirm the warrant, because dispatch in Franklin County doesn't have the warrants, because there are warrants. So that means they have to call somebody here in town, whether it be the chief or somebody's got to go down to the station, verify, hey, yes, this warrant is active. Whereas if it's with Franklin County Muni Court, their dispatchers say, hey, yeah, this is active. Because you can't be on a traffic stop and say, hey, timeout, please don't leave. You have a warrant. I just got to go confirm it. I'll be right back.
Right.
They're not going to be there. So there's just something that's not going to happen. But if it's Franklin County Muni Court, then they confirm all the warrants. You don't have to drive back to the station or have somebody go to the station to look to see, yes, they have a warrant.
Okay. Moving on, another topic of discussion. A lot of people have commented about the issue with the railroad tracks downtown, and of course, just on our way, actually down here today, we got stuck waiting for the train. Luckily, it was Amtrak, went by pretty fast, but I'm worried about making my schedule for coming down here to meet with you. So I can't imagine somebody in an emergency situation, police department on the other side of those tracks. So that's a fairly important issue. It's my understanding that so now we've got a new ambulance facility being built, correct? And the old one, I believe the square footage on that building, and it's not like the the building just got tore down over there. That used to be, I think it used to be Siders and the New Haven Lumber at one point or whatever. That was pretty deteriorated or whatever. Not really adaptable. But I believe the old ambulance building is possibly adaptable and has more than adequate square footage for compared to what the police department and city hall has now. So, and I believe one of the aldermen has actually brought this up, Gary Rustage, about possibly moving the police department and maybe city hall into that building. So I guess, have you heard any of those talks? And then what are your thoughts on that?
Well, to kind of start with the last point you made. So when Gary brought it up, when Mr. Rushes brought it up, he proposed that the PD move into the old, the old ambulance bay. But then where the police department is now, then that would open up more office space for City Hall. So when they do get fully staffed, because they still have 3 positions over there. They're gonna get a new city administrator because Kathy's retiring. They're gonna need I think it's a city collector that they have an open position for. They'll have, if we keep court, they'll have a court clerk. So they're gonna have different positions where they need. Right now, the ladies are all in one big room. Desk to desk to desk, and then Kathy's got her office. So,
Right.
So if we were out of that building, then they would move over there, is how he proposed it.
Okay.
So then there'd be more room for that. Now, starting with the very first point with the train, so my big thing is, and I brought it up to the alderman. It's no secret. It's been an issue since day one, but I haven't had to deal with it until January 1st of this year. So I brought it up. Whenever I was at Franklin County, I helped out with the school safety stuff, and it's very near and dear to me because I teach the DARE program. I'm going to take it over for here in New Haven. I'm going to take it over for R2. But whenever I was at Franklin County, I had 21 schools that I'd be going to. Well, so when you do that, you do a lot of school safety stuff and everything like that. And, if you're stuck by the train, so I was at a conference, an MNOA conference a couple weeks ago, and I posted a picture that Meg Lang took of the train that was stopped on blocking both intersections. All right. So I wasn't here. I wasn't affected by it, but 2 of my officers, because it happened before 7, they started at 7. They were responding to calls in their personal vehicles, which is a huge liability because if they get in an accident, they're not in an emergency vehicle. They're in their own personal vehicle. So then the insurance is going to be bickering back and forth on who pays for it. Well, are they acting under the work, but they're in their personal vehicle? So there's issues there. But they had emergency calls that they had to go to. It wasn't like, well, we'll wait till the train moves. You still have to do your job. So it's just one of those things. But the train was there for 36 minutes. So if, say we're down there and I'm doing paperwork and another officer, he's having lunch in the break room, and then a train stop, and then there's somebody that's wanting to cause great bodily harm at the elementary school. It's not far up the hill, yet Washington PD would be here before we could even get there if that train is stuck for 36 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of injuries happening and everything like that. And one thing that I told the board, the previous board, because now Monday there's going to be a new board, but the previous board is, if it's a problem and it's known and it doesn't get resolved, then that's a lot of zeros you're going to have to write on a check in the event of something happening.
Right.
And, take the school out of it, with an active shooter or something. Say Citizens Bank is getting held up, or say there's a physical domestic, or somebody's breaking into your house and we're delayed by a train and it's a known problem. Could you imagine if the ambulance bay was on that side of the tracks? People would throw fits. What if the fire department was on that side of the tracks? People would throw fits because it needs to be on that side of the it needs to be on the south side of the tracks. And the police is no different. Now, if I had a dream scenario, yes, I would absolutely love the ambulance bay because it's already set up for first responders. We would have a wash bay, which would be able to keep our vehicles clean. Right now, I pay for it out of my pocket to go to the car wash because, it's just something that we don't have in the budget. So, I'll go get $20 out, get some quarters and say, hey guys, go wash the cars, because the cars are rolling billboards. If you are, Chris Miller at the ambulance bay, he would always say, they're rolling billboards. If you don't keep them clean, why would the city and the taxpayers want to buy you new cars? Because you're not taking care of them in the first place. You know, the cars we got, they'll do, but I've already told them we need new cars. I mean, one of them's from 2016, and
That's 9 years old.
it's been, and for a patrol car, that's
Yeah.
a lot of years, you know, because patrol cars aren't like your car where you drive it to work and back home and shut it off. They're ran for 12 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day if cars are in the shop, you know, so that's a lot of hours on those cars. And so we're putting a lot of faith in very old cars, and I understand finances and stuff like that, but at the same time, if we don't have any cars, how are we going to be able to do our job? So if we fix the problem now with newer cars, then, you know, we won't have those just constantly putting band-aids on things that are going to ultimately break. But at the ambulance bay, we would have a wash bay so we could keep the cars clean. We would also have sally ports, or I'm sorry, not sally ports, but bays, you know, to keep the patrol cars in. So one, you keep them out of weather. You know, in the last month we've had how many storms where hail's come through.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about hail damage unless you're out driving around. But if you know a storm's coming through, well, hey, go park it, you know, in the bay real quick. You also have it for protection for the cars. You know, not that we have people really messing with our cars, but I have had Franklin County stop a few people several times walking around our patrol cars because they're just in a lot, you know. It's kind of a weird location. Yeah, it's by the PD, but it's an unmanned lot. You know, it's kind of it gets dark down there, and they've, you know, people's been looking at our cars, looking in, you know, and stuff like that. So you would have security where, you know, if somebody wanted to slash your tires or whatever it is, you know, you don't have that issue. It has a conference room, so you could have trainings there. You could hold trainings there. You can have instructors from outside agencies come in, teach the people, so you're not having to send your people elsewhere and having them taken off the road. We could still be here doing training and still respond as needed for calls, you know, if something came out. Now, somebody would obviously be on the road, but if, say, something big came out, then we would have the manpower here versus in Union or, you know, St. Louis at an academy or something. We could have instructors here because there would be an actual conference room. It has a kitchen. You know, there's not a lot of places to eat, but you know, you could pick each place to eat pretty much by the end of the week. So you get burnt out on eating. So if you wanted to bring your own food and make your lunch, make your dinner, there's a kitchen there. So you could have a semi-nice meal, you know, and have that.
For me, the number one negative about living in a small town, there's lots of positives, don't get me wrong, but the number one negative is the selection of places to eat.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's great places, but even the best place that I've ever eaten at, I don't want it every day, you know, so, you know, I want a little variety. But where their bedrooms are now, because, you know, with, you know, working at the ambulance, you know, you're working 48-hour shifts or whatever, and so you're sleeping there. So where their bedrooms are, you could convert those into offices, and then, you know, the officers can have a workspace and stuff like that. And then it's already got, so where they have their narcotics locked up, it's in a key padded room, locked up room. So that could be the evidence room. Like, it's already built for us. And it's off 100 where all of our problems are. In the last 5 years, I looked at the reports. In the last 5 years, there's only been 2 reports north of the tracks that was of something of substance. You know, not you going to the police department and saying, hey, my credit card got hacked, you know, something like that. But of needing an officer, so we're much more likely to be needed on the south of the tracks than north of the tracks.
Exactly. I mean, something could happen. Obviously, anything can happen, but odds are it's going to be on the other side of the track.
And, you know, some people say, well, you know, you shouldn't be, you know, hanging out at the PD. Well, yes, theoretically that's great, but I have a lot of paperwork. I'm starting up a department from scratch, and so I have to be at my desk every once in a while. I hate it. I don't like sitting at my desk, but there is paperwork that I have to go through. Like today, I was dealing with stuff with the Attorney General, and, you know, and I'm trying to get that all situated. So I have to be there. But if I'm at my desk and I'm across the tracks, I can still get from point A to point B. But if I'm at my desk on this side of the tracks, I'm stuck. Right. And I mean, I'm not super out of shape, but I'm no Usain Bolt. I'm not going to run to Highway 100. So it's one of those things where,
you still got to get across the train. I mean, it's not like you can jump over the train, right?
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, you know, the train, it doesn't get stuck often, but it gets stuck enough to where it could be a problem if it's at the right time.
Well, if it's stuck, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Okay. So moving on. So are there any? To get back to that though. Are there any? Is there anything scheduled to discuss that, or anything up for, review, or is it just in the conceptual stage, maybe?
on Monday, I put in the Board of Aldermen packet, to just vote on getting the discussion started.
Okay.
Because we talked about it at the last Board of Aldermen meeting. That's when Gary brought it up, and they all liked what I had to say, but they didn't want to make a decision for a future board. And I get that because they're not going to be involved as far as in the board. So, hey, why vote for something when it's going to be other people that are going to have to handle it? Let them vote on it. So I did bring up, hey, let's discuss it on Monday. That way we can at least start the ball rolling. And if there's a business that wants to go into the old ambulance bay and it brings money into town, I get that. That's fine. I don't necessarily need that. I don't care where you put me. I just have to have a brick and mortar building on that side. And instead of building a new building and spending all that money, I don't need that. I don't need, a state of the art, 3-story building like Washington has. I just need a building where I can go type a report, park a car, and then go drive around. But it just needs to be on that side of the tracks because this side of the track, there's just too much risk, too much liability in the event of something major happening in this town.
Right.
And if you keep living like it'll never happen in this town, that's when it's going to happen. I mean, just 13 miles to the west, we never thought an officer would get shot, and we had 2 get shot and 1 killed. So you can't live in this mindset of, hey, it'll never happen here. We're small. No, that's where things do happen, is in small towns.
Briefly touch, if you would, on the nuances of the spirit or intent of a law versus the black and white, maybe of the verbiage or whatever the law. I think some people in town, not everybody, but occasionally people will get upset and feel like there's some maybe unfair treatment, not directed at you at all specifically, but just probably in police all over the country in general about who gets pursued for charges or who doesn't. So maybe just this is just a general, not a specific to New Haven necessarily, but just a general point about that kind of the like I said, the spirit of the law versus the black and white, hard interpretation.
So like with different ordinances / laws, there's what we call officer discretion. So if, say, I'm in the school zone on Miller Street, okay, there's a sign that says from 7:30 in the morning to 4 p.m. at night it's 15 miles per hour, okay? Well, just today I was talking to Chad Johnmeyer, the assistant chief, and they've been running radar out there for the last several days, and an average mile per hour was 35 miles per hour during the school zone. That's average. So that means there's higher than 35, but there's also lower than 35. So, with that, if you're going 5 over, we're probably not going to, we have the option of pulling you over. We're probably not, we understand that, sometimes you, daydream and you go a little quick. Heck, sometimes I probably go a little quick. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've never sped before because that'd be a complete lie. But and then like with ordinances, if I see, so we have an ordinance on, unhooked trailers on the side of the road. And if I see an unhooked trailer, I don't immediately go and say, hey, you need to move this or I'm gonna, ticket you or tow it. No, I wait a couple days. Let's see, because there could be a reason. Maybe they're unloading stuff. Maybe, whatever it is. Maybe they just moved to town. They don't know the ordinance. So I give them a couple days. Now, if somebody calls and says, hey, there's a derelict vehicle on Circle Drive, well, I have to respond when somebody calls. So at that point, my officer discretion falls, okay, do I write a ticket? Do I give them time? Whatever it may be. But so far, everybody that I've talked to with ordinance violations, whenever I've explained to them and what it is, they get it fixed. They move their derelict vehicle, or they the car that's just broke down or up on blocks on the road, or the unhooked trailer, whatever it is, they've all got it fixed. And I know that I wasn't here in the past, but from what I hear is that they would just send out a letter saying, "Hey, you're in violation of this. Get it fixed, or we're going to give you a ticket." I don't like just sending out a letter because to me that's, I don't know, it's passive aggressive in my opinion. And I would rather come speak with you. One, I know you got the message because I'm talking to you face to face. But two, it just, to me, it means more if I'm coming up and talking to you. Hey, this is why it is. It's not that we're picking on you. It's you need to take pride in your city. We don't want it to become a junkyard. That's not what we're trying to do. There's other towns where they just let it go awry and then it just looks super trashy. And that's the goal of it. The goal isn't, it's not like we make millions of dollars on tickets or anything, and I know that's the misconception. The goal is we want our town to look good, presentable, so when people do come here and they come shop down at the shops downtown, or come down here and play cornhole tomorrow, or whatever it is, that they're not driving by a bunch of trash and they're like, wow, this place is pretty rough, let's go somewhere else. You want to have a good image of your town, and that's why those ordinances are there. It's not to be a big old meanie or anything like that. And so
it's not a revenue generator.
it's not a revenue generator at all, actually. In fact, with the courts, you almost, if you don't break even, you almost lose money. But it's one of those things where just because there's a law doesn't mean that it's going to be enforced. And what I mean by that is there's speeding, but if you're going 1 mile over, that doesn't mean you're getting pulled over. Now can you? Sure, but that's somebody that's having a pretty rough day if they're pulling you over for 1 mile over. So there's laws on the books to have in case you need them for something. Like if there's somebody that has, say, a derelict vehicle and they're not getting it moved, okay, well now we have something to fall on to where, tickets change behavior.
Yeah.
It's like if you get a ticket for speeding, chances are you're probably going to slow down. If you get a ticket for your plates being expired, you're probably going to get them up to date. If you, run a stop sign, okay, you're going to start stopping at stop signs. So tickets change behavior, but also just having your lights on change behavior. So just doing a stop and just saying, hey, you're going a little quick, slow it down. It's not all about writing 10,000 tickets a year. And a lot of people think that in small towns, that's all small town cops want to do is because they have nothing else to do. They write 10,000 tickets. I will tell you, we haven't wrote hardly any tickets yet because everybody we talk to, hey, your plates are a little expired. Get them up, get them good. Or you're going a little quick. Slow it down. And we're trying to get where this town hasn't had a police department in a year and a half roughly because even before Franklin County took over, they were still running very short to where we were still covering shifts whenever I was at Franklin County. So it's been about a year and a half-ish. And so people kind of let things go, and they would let their grass get higher. They would just leave junk in their front yard, or they drive like maniacs. And now people are starting to see police back, and things are getting fixed. And it's not, again, we're not out to get people. Ordinances are created, one, for safety, but two, so you have a good image of your town. People come to town, they see it, and they're like, wow, this is actually a really nice place. Maybe we should visit more, or move here, or whatever. Versus, man, did you see all those broke down cars in front of all these houses? This place looks like, something closer to the city, and I don't want to be a part of it. You're not going to get any business if you look like trash.
You see that you drive through some unincorporated areas.
Yeah.
You see some of that, but and I think the spirit of the law really I think is about safety, and I think if you're in that school zone, doing a couple miles an hour over the speed limit, but there's no kids around, no cars parked for blind spots or whatever. That's a huge difference between if there's kids just got off of school walking down the street, crossing the street,
right.
Cars parked where there's blind spots where you can't see a kid come across or whatever. I'm sure all those things come into play.
Oh yeah.
And that's probably a major determining factor in that. So, moving on, because I don't want to keep you too long. I want to ask you how the hiring process is going. Or do we have 3 officers now?
So we have 3 plus me, yes.
Yeah.
So Chad Johnmeyer, he's got about 29 years of law enforcement experience. Adam Garner, he's got close to 6 years of experience. And then Virginia Howard, she just got out of the academy in November of 24. So we have something from a lot of years to 0 years. You know, in ultimate, or you know, I like that because then you don't have guys that are you know, a bunch of guys that are just set in their ways because they've been doing it for a long time. You have fresh blood in where, you know, okay, I just went to the academy, now I'm ready to do the job and I'm ready to serve the citizens of New Haven. So I like the varying degrees of experience. The hiring process itself, we did 2 interviews last week, or I'm sorry, the week before, and one of them we gave a background packet. So if we get that back, then that'll be number 5, and they have 17 years experience, so that'd be good experience to have. But again, I'm just waiting for the background packet, so I'm going to call them at the end of this week and just see, you know, hey, did you change your mind? Is it because it is a lengthy background packet,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you want that because you want to make sure that you're getting quality officers and not somebody that's been here got fired, or here been a problem, or here got in a lawsuit. You know, whatever it is, you want to make sure you find that out before you sign on the dotted line. And so I tell people it looks intimidating because it is a very lengthy packet, but it's necessary.
I worked for a school district and I had to go through background check and, you know, and I, you know, it wasn't horrible, but it may take some time. So I can imagine what maybe that process is for you guys. So.
Absolutely.
So, well, it sounds like everything's going good. You happy with the progress so far? I think you said you were ahead of schedule, right?
Yeah, I fully expected myself to be by myself till May or June, and you know we're sitting in April and we've got 4 total. So once Adam and Virginia get off FTO, I mean, we can start then knocking back the Franklin County contract and start saving that money, which is a lot of money. And you know, we couldn't have done this without Franklin County's help. They've been great. Sheriff Pelton and Major Wild and all them, Lieutenant Piskey. You know, they've came out. They've got the schedule, you know, filled up every single time. We don't have to worry about, well, we don't have anybody covering for this, so we'll just have to make it work. No, there's somebody here at all hours whenever we have that the time frame that they're here. And so, you know, without their help, it would be virtually impossible. But because of their help, we're here during the day, they're here during the night, they're here on weekends. But once Virginia and Adam are off FTO, then we can have 24-hour coverage. And so even with 4. Now, obviously, for officer safety reasons, I want to get fully staffed, but I don't have to hire just to hire because I've already got people, you know. So I'm not going to hire somebody just because they breathe oxygen, because that's when you end up in a lawsuit or you get somebody that doesn't need to be an officer or whatever it may be. And you know, this town's already had, you know, a dark cloud over them, and we're not going to do that again. You know, what we are going to have is we're going to have quality officers that are going to be involved in the community. We're going to be at the schools. Like I said at the beginning, the schools are very important to me. You know, relationships with the schools, relationships with the kids. You know, we do walkthroughs several times a day at each of the schools because, you know, the kids need to see that we're not just robots, that we are, you know, not scary like, you know, some people portray us to be, media, family members, whoever it may be. Now, are there bad apples in the group? Absolutely. There's also bad teachers, there's bad doctors, there's bad preachers, there's bad nurses, you know. So now we are under the microscope more than anybody, but you know that going in. So I don't really get riled up about that. It comes with the territory. I mean, you know that going in, so why get worked up about it? It is what it is. And you're expected to live at a higher standard, work at a higher standard, and that's just how the world works.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I can speak for most of the community. I haven't heard anything negative about this experience with you coming on at all. Nothing but positive things. I think it's a case of the right person at the right time. You know, I mean, it just fell into place. Seems like it's working out for you. It's definitely working out for us. And as a son of a retired police officer, I have experience. I know some police officers, and I think that I think we got a pretty good one
Well,
this
and
time. So
I know that the town, the city officials and some of the members were very stressed whenever the disband happened. The dissolve, whatever you want to call it. But honestly, I think that it almost was the best thing that could have happened, because I don't know who all was here before, because I never hung out in New Haven. I never, I didn't know any of the people besides one. So like I don't know how it all was, but from what I hear, that would be a lot to have to take on and get changed.
Yeah.
Get the work ethic changed, get the, if there's shadiness, get that out, whatever it may be. So just starting from scratch to where it's you choose your people and success and failures fall on you and who you deem appropriate for the town of New Haven, then I think that ultimately, that to me was a selling point for it. Was I was coming in with nobody. People thought I was crazy, but to me, it's like buying a brand new car. I don't have to worry about how other people drove it. I'm the only one here. I'm getting it started, and we now, with Chad, Virginia, and Adam, we now are experiencing the fruits of the rebuild. It means more to me rebuilding something from the ground up than if Washington came to me and said, "Hey, Chris, come be our chief."
Right.
Then it's just changing chairs.
This is your baby.
But you're already established there. They have a detective bureau. They have road. They have traffic. They have all sorts of things. Here, we're not established. It was just me for 2.5 months, and then now we're starting to get people. And I think as we go on, people are seeing, wow, this isn't some crazy weird experiment that Chris is doing. This is actually something real, and people are applying it. And whenever Chad came over, I think that really sent waves through the law enforcement community, because again, Chad was in law enforcement for 29 years, and it's a big risk to go somewhere that disbanded, that dissolved, because, well, what if they do it again?
Right.
And I tell everybody, the town's not going to have it dissolve again, because you dissolve a second time, you're never getting it
Done.
back. And then you're going to turn into, a town like, Berger, Villa Ridge, where they don't have law enforcement. It is, Franklin County will respond, but who knows where they're coming from? They could be coming from Gerald.
Right.
They could be coming from Union. They could be coming from Washington. So you don't know where they're coming from. And so whenever he came over and he took that risk, when we sat down in the interview, I said, listen, I had a Monday through Friday gig. I had a K-9 with Franklin County. I was on the traffic unit. I taught the DARE program. Had a pretty easy gig. I wasn't chasing the radio at all. And to take that risk and come here, it was a big thing. I sat down with, I talked with Sheriff Pelton about it. Talked with my dad, who is a retired captain at Union. I talked to, my wife, obviously. I talked to some friends, and it was a decision. But ultimately, I said, you know what, I'm going to apply, and if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and we'll see what happens. So
You're going to say that says a lot about New Haven, but I think it says a lot about you.
well, I appreciate it.
So
It's the transition has been a lot better than what I expected, and what I mean by that is anywhere I go, people talk about, oh, we are so happy to have you, as in the department, not me. I'm no one special. I just go out and I do my job, and people, I guess, are happy that somebody's doing the job. So, but the people that I've hired so far, Chad, Virginia, and Adam, they make my job easier, because they're going out and they're killing it too. They're going out, and I tell everybody, I want you in businesses, I want you in the schools, I want you going and talking to people, be visible, because the people want to know what they're paying for. And that's why I do the weekly recap. If you are hiding behind what you do and people never see you, well, then they're gonna question, well, why are we paying our officers, X amount of dollars whenever I don't ever even see them? I don't even know if anybody's working. So that's why I put the weekly recap on there. We had 20 calls for service this week, or this week was slower, we had 10, whatever it may be. But here's traffic stops, here's business checks, all this stuff, because I want to be as transparent as possible. This is what we're out there doing. This is what you're paying us for. Hopefully you're happy with it. We're trying. This week, on Monday, I got a drug arrest, and so we fixed that issue pretty quick.
Nice.
I got another 11 grams of meth off the street. So it's one of those things where we are trying hard to turn this town back on the right tracks, and the few people that haven't seemed to want to get on board, I think they're quickly realizing better get on board, because and it's not like I'm trying to be a jerk or anything, but we're not going to have this town turn into a town that has normalized the SWAT truck driving down the street. There's other towns in this county where you see a SWAT truck, you don't blink. It's every day. It's whatever.
Yeah.
New Haven's not like that. You want that kind of lifestyle, you go elsewhere. But if you want to live here, we're going to play by the rules. You're not going to be here turning this town upside down. You're not going to be here spreading drugs throughout the community. Ultimately, if you can't get on board, then I suggest looking elsewhere.
I'm big on accessibility, openness, transparency. If you follow me even now, you know that. As the admin of New Haven Now, I can tell you that your those weekly reports, that's one of the things we get the most response on, the most interaction. People really seem to enjoy that. So for everybody here, I tell you, we appreciate that. Wrap it up. Is there anything else you'd like to say or mention before we get off?
No, I just, like I mentioned before, the transition in this town and the community support and everything we've done has just been phenomenal. And we've had so many people that have come up and said, hey, how can we help with some of your PR events, or whatever it may be, because again, we're going to be community oriented. Adam Solentrup and I, we went to the nursing home and gave out flowers to the older ladies, and some chocolates to the older guys that were there, because they don't care about flowers, they just want chocolates. So but we gave out candy and flowers there. We've had the Meet the Chief event, and I'm wanting to get, not every month, but maybe like every quarter, where we do a Saturday at a business, whether it be Lang Tang, or maybe we do a lunch somewhere or something, where people can come in and talk with the officers and me. That way they have a way to express questions, concerns, just get to know them, because Monday through Friday most people are working. So if we did it on a Tuesday morning, well, nobody would be able to really show up unless they're retired or they took off or whatever. So I would like to do it on a weekend where they can come out and the community can engage with us. Because ultimately the community is what helps us make the world go round. Without the community support, we're nobody. And again, I'm not doing, I'm not walking on water or anything. I'm just doing my job, and people are happy with it. And ultimately, that's all I can ask is and that's how I tell, Virginia, Adam, and Chad, if I'm not doing my job, let me know, because we're not going to fall into this complacency where we just simply, we're just going to, okay, I'm a white shirt now, so I'm just going to do what I want. No. In a small town like this, you have to be a working chief, you have to be a working assistant chief, and you have to be working officers. You can't just sit back and just let. But the town support, the school support, everybody's support has been awesome. I know we're getting a new board on Monday, but the previous board that was here, they've been awesome since I've came on board. Anything that I've asked for, within reason, obviously. I'm not asking for the moon, but we got new body cameras, and those are so important for transparency and officer safety, and just reports in general. Any sort of officer involved shooting or something, you need a body cam, because even if you did everything by the book, you're gonna be hung out to dry if it's not on video in this day and age. So we got new body cams that actually work, and I'm thankful for that. They did good on that. We needed new computers. We got some new computers. So they've been very supportive in that aspect, and I can't say thanks enough for that. And with the new board coming in, hopefully we have the same relationship, and I don't see why we won't. And so I'm excited that we're turning the page over to that, and so we'll see how it goes. And I'm, like I said, Monday, I think we're gonna be able to continue building, because ultimately we want New Haven to be the best place to live, work, and shop. And that should be everybody's goal. Whether you have difference of opinion on certain things, we all have to be on the same page to make New Haven succeed. And if we're butting heads over little piddly stuff, in board meetings or something like that, we're not going to get anywhere. So luckily, I think everybody's going to be kind of on the same page, and so I'm excited about that.
And we're all on the same team.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Team New Haven.
Chris, thank you very much. A lot of positivity. I think things are heading in the right direction, and I appreciate your time. And maybe I'll come out. You can take me on a tour because I've never actually been inside the police department.
Absolutely.
We can see what you got there, and then maybe help for other people. I'm sure most people probably haven't seen it. Help them get an idea of what you've got to work with and kind of how much you need.
Absolutely.
Something else, something more down
Yeah,
there.
and we've had the scouts down there, and they've taken a tour of the building. But if there's any other groups, organizations, youth groups, whatever, that want to take a tour of the building, just get a hold of me, and we can definitely make that happen. But I appreciate you having me down and let me talk your ear off for a little bit.
No, it's been my pleasure. Thanks, Chris, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you.
I appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.